Hi folks, I'm Spence, and on today's episode of Cult Mania, we're doing something a little different in that this is some advice on micro-budget filmmaking. Now, I've wanted to do a sort of behind-the-scenes video on some of the short films that I've made for quite a while, and as I'm gearing up to make a new short film next year, I thought now's the time to do it. So this is basically just some advice on how I've made the last few short films I've done with no money. And because I just don't think we get a lot of people who do advice on filmmaking on YouTube are sponsored to high heaven and have access to so much gear, are being paid to do it, whereas it's a hobby thing for me. It's what I went to uni to learn how to do, but I've learnt far more from actually just making stuff, and I thought, well, let's pass on some of the lessons that I've learned. So this is not a video about what gear to buy or how to write or how to light a scene, stuff like that. This is mainly just advice and things that stuff I've learned from actually just doing it. I've basically tried to put these tips in order from sort of pre-production through to post-production. So my first bit of advice is that low budget should not mean low ambition. Give your film a reason to exist. So many people who make micro-budget films, I think there is a temptation to just go, okay, let's have two people and some talking, the student film thing of it's some people in a coffee shop and it's all about the script, and that's the reason. The thing is, so many people do that, and if you're on a low budget, which means you may not have the most amazing camera gear, sound gear, relying solely on dialogue is quite a difficult thing. And you can make anything on a micro budget. You could make a sci-fi film on no money if you know what you're doing. And I think an audience are much more likely to forgive small budgetary setbacks, things that are holding it back from being like, ooh, it's a big production. If you're really ambitious, the last film I made, Deathblow, Killer of Killers, was intended to be referential to 1960s Yakuza films, like Tokyo Drifter style. And we made that, if you take away anything that was to do with camera gear or anything like that, it cost us like 200 quid maximum to be period set, have shootouts and stuff like that. And trust, an audience will go, wow, you went for it. That counts for far more than any of the sort of technical setbacks that you might have. The second thing is, let what you have guide your vision. Don't let your limits be part of your style. The film that I made in lockdown, Nightmare Trip, was basically designed around the fact that we already had the skull that was the central thing. That we owned that it sits underneath our telly downstairs. And it looked great, and we were like, well, when I started writing, I was like, well, we want to include that because it looks good and I don't have to pay for it. That film cost £5 because all of the weird taxidermy stuff and the skulls and all the other stuff that was in that film, I already had. And yet it looked like we'd have spent way more money on it. So let your limitations... Well, don't see them as limitations. This doesn't even have to be about props or stuff. I mean, obviously, if you have an old-looking house, set it in the past because it's production value that you don't have to buy. But it can even be something like when I was at uni, my uni accommodation room got the sun in the afternoon directly through the window. So I sat my actors down in one scene in front of the window because it was already there, and it's probably the nicest looking bit of the film because we had access to that. So walk around your house or your flat or whatever and just look for funky stuff. You don't have to spend money for things to look like you did. And then you can spend the money on just the bits that you don't have. Don't get distracted. This is quite a strange thing for me to say, but personally, when I'm writing, when I'm directing, when I'm doing cinematography, I can easily be distracted by other films. So if we use Deathblow as an example, because it was supposed to look like a Sujin Suzuki film, I had to stay in that world because, I mean, there is an example in the film. I watched some Wong Kar-wai stuff and suddenly was like, oh, we need to put step printing in, which was fine. It fit the vibe, but I often find that I will be watching something that's completely unrelated to the film that I'm making and suddenly go, oh, but that's really good. I need to put that in. Even if I'm writing, even if it doesn't end up in one script, I'll get distracted and start writing something else. So just make sure that when you're looking at other media, don't let it influence too much what you're working on because you'll just end up with some horrible, clustered, messy thing. Especially on a micro budget when you don't want to be wasting money on new ideas or wasting time because you might be paying actors to do train fare. Don't waste your time on. So try and stick with what you originally had in mind. Obviously, be open to ideas, but keep that focus. Don't let a lack of gear hold you back. So many people on YouTube, because they're making sponsored content or they're being sent things frequently by companies, will tell you need the latest Panasonic camera, the best Arri lights, the best whatever, Rode microphones. You don't. And even if we're not talking about gear like that, I have not, well, since leaving uni, I've not made a film that used a light stand because I didn't have any, and it was money that I didn't feel I needed to spend. So my film lights, which I did have, were just propped up against door frames or on a table or held by a crew member in the case of the intro to Deathblow. It's just someone holding a strip light above their head like that. Let stuff like that just be part of your style. If you only have one light, cool, just go for a much more stylised effect. If you're going to spend money on something, spend it on sound. Because people will forgive poor video quality much more so than they will poor sound quality. I know that from personal experience because we royally screwed up the sound on Deathblow because it was too windy and had to post-sync everything and didn't do an amazing job of it. So if you're going to spend money on kit, spend it on sound. But also, money on kit is money that you just keep using because you'll use the kit again. In fact, actually, that's a mini point. Try and, if you're buying stuff, if you're buying costume stuff and you're on or props, try and make sure they're things that you can use again. I bought toy guns for Deathblow. I spent a little bit more because I wanted ones that reloaded and had pulley slides and stuff like that. But they're things that I can just write into the next thing. It sort of loops back into that. Make what you already have. There's a rule that a lot of filmmakers use of ask for forgiveness, not permission, which usually comes down to trying to film stuff in public. I'm bringing that rule down to just ask. Because, yes, you may not get everything that you want, but a lot of people are very. They see film and people making a film as being this big, huge thing that's exciting. And a lot of the time, people will actually want to help out. I'm usually quite a pessimistic person when it comes to what people will do. But you mentioned film and people get really excited. So my crew is nearly always just friends who don't necessarily have filmmaking experience but have a passion for it. They like films. And it's how you get things done. I shot Deathblow at the school that I was working at the time, and I had to pay, but I got a discount. And if I hadn't have asked, that would have not worked. And we shot the entire thing there. It was perfect. Similarly with the car that is in Deathblow, that was owned by a member of the crew who I just asked if they wanted to come down and help out with the filming because they were a friend, and then they volunteered the car. And we got free production value because we suddenly went from being, how do we make this film look more 60s, 70s? Oh, well, now we've got a 60s, 70s vintage car for free. So just ask people things because they will most likely say yes. Things will go wrong. You have to know that from the start, and you have to be willing to adapt. And I know I said don't get distracted, but sometimes things happen and they happen for the right reasons. That might be a shot that you were planning and felt really important. Suddenly you realise can't work because there's something in the frame that you just weren't expecting. You've just got to roll with it, and because if you're on a micro budget, you haven't got the time or the money to change things, so you've just got to roll with it. And who knows what you come up with on that day on the spot may well be way better. And this comes with talk with your crew, talk with your cast, because despite I'm a control freak, I write, direct, edit, cinematography, music, do whatever I can myself, but some of the best stuff just comes from talking to your cast because you're trying to figure out, you're thinking steps and steps ahead. They're only focused on what they're doing. And there was a shot that I'd got as multiple shots in Deathblow, and one of the cast was like, I think we can just do that in one. And it saved us so much time that we'd lost on costume changes and waiting for the wind to die down. And it was great. But also, there was the next day, we put fake blood on one of the characters and it stained his face and we lost so much time. But you just got to be ready for that sort of stuff to happen and roll with it. And, shoot another scene while he's off washing his face or whatever. This is probably the only geary technical point that I'm really going to make. You can get so much stuff for post-production for free. Google is your best friend. And I'm not talking about pirating software, although obviously that is an option. I used for years the free version of DaVinci Resolve to edit pretty much everything, despite even when I was at university and we had access to more expensive stuff, I used that because I knew that I could use it forever because it was free. But obviously that was limited, and I like all my films to look like they are made on film stock. DaVinci has a built-in film stock process thing, but it's massively labour intensive, on your laptop, PC, whatever. And also, it wasn't included in the free version, so I was getting film grain offline as overlays. And yeah, you can buy stuff. And if you want 4K and to have a lot of control, yeah, you are probably going to have to pay. But there's so much stuff out there that's 1080p that is absolutely free as given away as starter packs. And I'll use stuff like that for years. And And even 4K stuff, you'll find something for free somewhere. LUTs, I've never bought a lookup table once, because you can find, again, so many for free. People have compiled lists that are just website links that'll take you to, here's 30 lookup tables that will give you the look of the Matrix or whatever. You can find so much stuff. Royalty-free music isn't the best, but if you've got access to any editing software, you can stretch the music out, you can lower the tone, you can do so much. The first thing I made at uni, I just took this old sort of proper silent movie honky tonk piano track and slowed it down massively till it was super creepy and scary. So you can find stuff for free, it's just the time that it will take to find it is the problem. One of the biggest things is just have fun. You're making a film, for Christ's sake. And I say this as someone who has, on pretty much every film I've ever made, had a point in which I'm on the verge of tears on set because something's gone wrong. Enjoy it. Being creative, making a film is one of the best things you can do. It's so much fun. It's so stressful. And if you're putting any money into it, you are going to be stressed because you're thinking, Christ, even if it's just 50 quid or something, you think, no, I've spent 50 quid and it's not worked how I wanted it to. So what? At least you didn't spend $1,000 on it. And you're making something. You're pushing yourself to have a creative output and have fun. Hopefully the people that you're working with you like and are hanging out with, and the fun that you have making it comes out on the screen. People will forgive technical shoddiness if they can tell that you were passionate about what you were doing and you were having a good time. It passes on. And yeah, you're making a film, you're doing what most people wish they were doing. You're actually doing it. So have fun. Go lop someone's head off with a thing and have it be. We made heads for my uni dissertation film Blue Flies, and they're crap. They were made out of polystyrene. But making them was a heck of a lot of fun, and getting to smash them up with a fucking baseball bat was even more fun. Gouging their eyes out and sticking thumbs in and having blood pour out. It was a lot of fun. The whole scene around it looked shit. But that bit was fun. Focus on the good stuff. And big up the good stuff. If you've got a creative idea, that's all a short film needs. Is one really good idea and you're away. The rest of it falls into place. I hope that was helpful. I know they're not great. They're more like philosophy tips for making a micro-budget film. But I just think sometimes people get so lost in the technical aspects of making films and making short films, and that tech and rules and being efficient and all this stuff gets thrown around with micro-budget filmmaking, and people don't think about just the actual doing it and why you do it. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you'd like to see some more focused filmmaking tip video stuff, let me know down in the comments. Give me your advice. Is there anything that I said that you're like, what? Why would you say that? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos, and I shall see you next time.